Hello, Jassteena. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm fine too. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interview.
It's so nice to finally meet you in Zoom person.
Yes. So let me introduce about you to our audience. So friends, we have Jassteena here. She's a clinical hypnotist and a coach from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. She specializes in helping mostly women, especially to find their voice and become a leader in their own life, whatever that means to them. That's so wonderful, listener, because I hear this statement often like, I don't have my voice of my own and all that. So, great job. So, before we get into other questions, so I want to know, how did you get into hypnosis?
Sure. And in order to answer that question, I'm going to tell you the journey that I've taken in my life, if
Mhm.
that's okay.
Yes, yes.
So my life actually changed when I was in grade 6.
Okay.
I don't remember, that's probably around 12 years old or so. Up to that point, I had a normal-ish, childhood. I was very sheltered in my life. My parents were pretty strict. But what happened in grade 6 was that I lost a family member that was very close to me. So that's a very drastic change in your life. And because of that happening, what I ended up doing is I ended up going into a dark place. I ended up kind of pushing people away and just going more into myself. And it's funny because at that point, like that year was actually a really great year and a really horrible year. It was a horrible year because I lost someone, but it was a great year because I actually took a leadership role in school. I became the president of my class. So it was a very monumental year for me. But anyhow, I took that turn. And so you become a different person, when you go inward. So when I went inward, what ended up happening is, you have a lot of negative emotions, anger, sadness, resentment, and whatnot. And so also, like I think I mentioned already, I push people away. So that changes you as a person. So as time went by, um, it got to a point where living my life this way, I got to a point where uh, my cousin was I'm skipping a whole bunch of steps, but my cousin was visiting me one day many years later. And, he said to me that he had this CD
Okay.
and he's like, I want you to listen to it.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And it's like, if you like it, let me know. And I have another one to give you. And and I was like, okay, I'll listen to it. So I listened to it and it was Tony Robbins.
Wow.
And I think it was Unleash the Giant Within. I don't remember the name right now or something
There's a
like that.
book with the same title, yes.
Yeah. So I listened to it and I was like, wow, like it actually had such a strong impact on me. And it kind of makes you think about yourself and your life. And then I told my cousin, oh, I really liked it, this is awesome. And so then my cousin gave me another CD, which I think was Giant Steps as well, and that really started motivating me. So from there, I went from all this self anger and whatnot, and then it made me think a different way, and it made me think more outside of myself. So from there, I started. Uh, I went to my first Tony Robbins event.
Wow.
They call it UPW,
Unleash
and
the power within.
yes, yes, yes. And it was amazing. Like, it was so amazing. It's like going from night to day. And I even bought, so I live in Toronto. I even drove all the way to New York to volunteer for
Wow.
UPW. That's how, I was like, this stuff is amazing.
Did you do
And
that firewalking? Was
I
there that?
did. So
Oh,
I think I did it 3 times. So I did
wonderful.
UPW twice and volunteered once. So I did it, yeah, I did it 3 times and walked on fire. Yeah, it was amazing. And I actually ended up doing Tony Robbins' mastery program.
Mhm.
So I went to Fiji and had that whole experience as well. And but really, as I was doing all this, I was thinking, I want to learn what Tony Robbins is doing. Because imagine what you could do with that skill set. Imagine it's like it gives you so much purpose. And then I know Tony Robbins uses NLP. And but you have your day job, I was in IT. And so some time early in my career, I got laid off from my job. And so I started thinking, okay, what else can I do if I want to do
Blessing
something
in the
else?
disguise.
Well,
Yeah.
I looked into coaching at that time, like life coaching, and I found there was 2 schools in Canada, but they're outside my price range. So, that wasn't happening. But one of the schools, I believe, was teaching Ericksonian hypnosis. So that was the first time I ever even heard of hypnosis.
Okay.
And I don't know if they taught NLP. I don't remember now. But anyhow, what happens, with your reticular activating system, once you start focusing on something and learning about something, more of that appears. And from there, somehow, I came across a company called NLP Works in Toronto,
Mhm.
run by Hugh Comerford. And I ended up finding out that he was hosting, I think, a 2 or 3 day introduction to NLP.
Okay.
And that was something I could afford.
Okay.
So I took that course, and then it was amazing. And so I took his full 6-month comprehensive NLP program. And that actually changed my life. I was a very different person after taking that course. So I'm very grateful to Hugh for that. And from there, I met Mike Mandel, who's based in Toronto, and that's how I learned about hypnosis. And really, when I started all this, it was all for my own growth and my own self-development, because I was in a dark place. And that whole journey, kind of took me out of that. Because when you're in a dark place, you're not being your true self. No, right? So it was like that was all for my own growth, my own self-development. And once I trained in NLP and I trained in hypnosis, I started thinking, I can help more than just myself.
Wow.
So, but even at that point, I wasn't thinking, I would want to do it as a career.
Hmm.
And so I just started doing it with friends and family. And then I got to a point where, it's like, I want to help people. I think that's always been my calling. I mean, if I like, in like my culture, we do birth charts. I don't know if you're familiar with that, right? So something interesting is in my birth chart, when I was young, my mom was told and never told me that I'm supposed to be a teacher. It was good they didn't tell me, because I never wanted to be a teacher. And then I don't know how many years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, or maybe less, I went to an astrologer here who looked at my birth chart. And he said the same thing. Like,
Wow.
he just looked at me like, what are you doing? Or maybe it was more than 10 years ago then. And because like, what are you doing in this career? Because you're supposed to be a teacher. And I'm like, what? But, when I think about it now, I think of myself as an educator, which is like kind of the same thing, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, but yeah, that's kind of like a shorter form of my journey.
Wow. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. It's when we look back, we can join all the dots, right? Laying off from the IT job till where you are right now. It's
I mean,
everything.
I can tell you even one more thing that I skipped. When I was in high school, we had a course called TNT, Teens Needing Teens.
Oh, okay.
And what was that? The way I used to describe it was a peer counseling course, except I'm not allowed to use the word counseling, so I'm not using that word. But that's the best way to describe it. And the purpose of that course was when you successfully finish it, your photo would go up in the lobby in school, which meant that if anyone needed someone to talk to and they didn't want to talk to a teacher, they could talk to their peers, which would be someone whose photo was up, which was, mine was one of them. So, I mean, in that class, what do you learn? Similar things to NLP-ish, how to listen, so it's like a lot of the basic, like a lot of the foundations, I learned in high school and I really enjoyed it. But even at that time, I had an interest in psychology, but I thought, with my culture and all, I can't be in school for 10 plus years, my parents have to marry me off. Like what a limiting belief that was. I'm like, no one's gonna do that to me. But you know what? I think the path that I took is the path I was meant to take.
Wonderful. Awesome. Amazing. So since you are into NLP and hypnosis, this interview, I wanted to speak more about hypnosis, Jassteena. And very basic question to get started with is, how is hypnosis different from sleep?
Sure. So I think of hypnosis as a state of relaxation plus heightened focus. Okay. When you're sleeping, there's no heightened focus. I mean, you might be focusing on your daydream or your dreams, but let me add a little bit more to that. So when we think about brain waves, there are 4 main brain waves. So the first one would be beta, which is 12 to 40 hertz, and that's normal when you're awake. Like now, we're both awake, we're conscious, and we know what's happening around us. After that becomes alpha, which is 8 to 12 hertz. It's more of a meditative state. So when you feel present and quiet, you're alert, but you're very calm. So that's a very light trance. Then comes theta. And theta is 4 to 8 hertz. It is when you're very strongly internally focused. You have the feeling of relaxation, almost to the point of drowsiness. It's like daydreaming. It's a deeper state of trance. And at this point is where you can easily access your imagination, vivid mental imagery. And then the last state is delta, which is 0.5 to 4 hertz, and that is deep, dreamless sleep. So this is when you're unconscious and your brain activity is very low, and this is your deep sleep. So this is when the parasympathetic nerve becomes stronger, it activates, and your body focuses on healing, rest, and recuperation. So change work happens best when you're in theta or delta states. Okay. And that's when deep trance occurs. So deep trance is during theta, or the deepest trance is during theta. And it might feel like you're sleeping. The one difference is if you're actually sleeping, then the difference is you might not be as open to suggestibility. I mean, it's possible, but it's very much reduced. So ideally, you don't want to be sleeping.
For good results. Yes, thank you. That and one more question, Jassteena, I keep hearing, oh, I don't want to get re-traumatized. It was some let's say it could be abuse, it could be any sort of some childhood issue or past issues. So in hypnosis, when a therapist or hypnotist takes a person into trance and regress them into past, there could be some abreactions or chances of re-traumatization. So then is hypnosis safe?
All right, so I can answer this in a few different parts.
Okay.
Um, let's say the first part will be a story,
Story. Yes, agree.
talking about an abreaction. So when I was first trained,
Mhm.
I'd never heard the word abreaction.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was something that you had to pay attention to. Okay, so and this was a point where I was just learning for my own self-development. And but I was always, ready to share with like random people if the opportunity arose, right? Because you want to fix everybody at that point,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So so what happened was I used to volunteer a lot in Toronto for the arts, and I was volunteering for a particular theater event, and the particular performance. There was something different about it this time, that they had special volunteer roles to pay attention if anyone leaves the theater during the show, because it talked about a triggering event. It talked about it had content that could trigger someone or cause someone to abreact. So I said, I have a special skill set, put me in that role. So what happened during what happened after one of the performances was so after performance, what happens? Everyone goes to the washroom before they go home, or the restroom.
Hmm.
And so, I was in the washroom and there was a lady in there that was just washing her face, which, it was a little bit odd, it's like something is like happening to her. And a lady said to her, "Oh, are you okay?" And when you're trying to bottle up your emotions and someone says something to you, what happens? It explodes out. And she started what you call abreacting.
No.
So at that point, I was probably washing my hands or something. And so I took her with me and I brought her aside, um, somewhere private where we could just both sit together. And I sat with her as she is abreacting she is not just crying, but shaking and shivering and teeth chattering. It's something I had never seen before. But like she was reliving something.
Hmm.
And I sat with her, and I tried to make her safe, like feel safe by sitting there with her. And at one point I said to her, I have a special skill set which might be able to help you. And I asked for her permission, are you willing to work with me and we can kind of work through this? And she said yes, otherwise I wouldn't have a story to tell you. And I was with her for maybe 2 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours. I don't remember now. And by the end of it, she said to me, "You didn't help me with just for today. I think you changed the rest of my life."
Wow.
And she was abreacting. She was abreacting, and I just kind of helped her through it. I didn't, because I didn't know, like, oh, if you abreact, you're supposed to kind of take them out of it. And I just kind of brought her through it. But I helped her stay safe at every point. Feeling safe and secure is number one. And they have to be willing, and you check up on them every step of the way. So if a hypnotist or anyone is going to bring someone through something like this, they need to be highly skilled to make sure they don't re-traumatize the person, because it is possible if they don't know what they're doing, right? So when I have a session with someone, there is some sort of regression every single time, whether it's regression to cause or regression to another event. There's always some regression. My point of view is how freeing is it? How freeing can it be to be able to say the things you never got to say when you were a child? How freeing is that, right? Or how amazing would that feel to get that unconditional love that you never got as a child,
Wow.
right?
Awesome.
So I think it's very important, you know, especially with love. Everybody needs that unconditional love, right?
Yes. Thank you for clarifying that, Jastina. It really helps. And I promise I've been asking so many questions to you. This would be my last question. Do you use suggestibility tests in your hypnosis? Because this interview is also being watched by other therapists, coaches, and all that. So that's the reason I'm asking all this about safety, difference between hypnosis and sleep for different level of audience, Justina. So, do you use suggestibility tests in your sessions, and what are the benefits of
Definitely. I use suggestibility tests before the session.
it?
And by before the session, I mean during my consult, actually,
Okay.
and during the session.
Mhm.
So the reason for doing a suggestibility test during the consult is partly as a convincer,
Okay.
right? Because I usually do magnetic fingers, and people, you know, and like people love it. They're like, what? Wow. So, you know, it helps them, gives them more, helps them believe it more. But it also helps me determine if they're ready for hypnosis
Okay.
or if they're going to push back and be resistant. Because I want to make sure if I take on a client that they're 100% in and they're ready and willing, you know, to do what it takes to get what the results they want.
Wow.
And during a session, I also do suggestibility tests just to see how deep they are.
Okay.
Because if you know, if they're, I always have a hard time pronouncing this word, a somnambulistic state. I don't know if I said it right. But you know, whether are they that deep or how deep are they? For me, I don't need a deep trance most of the time because I do a lot of NLP work, and a
Mhm.
lot of the transformation happens with that, also with conversational hypnosis. But it does help to know if they are very deep, then you can use a lot more hypnosis in there, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Justina, for your time. And it was wonderful interviewing you because, like, different experts come and share their experience and different concepts. People get benefited from different perspectives. Like, what is if someone is new to hypnosis, they will understand certain things. If they're already experienced, they get their level of information. So that's why I had the questions from all levels, beginner to this level. So thank you once again for your time, and it was wonderful talking to you.
My pleasure. It was wonderful talking to you as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.